Sometimes life hits us with some really scary experiences that we can never forget. So, what has been your scariest experience in life so far?
Probably waking up and realizing I was completely out of alcohol and the stores were closed. It was mostly just from anxiety, but I could not stop shaking. Couldn't hold my phone. Could hardly move. As the night went on, it got worse. My head was going to explode. Anything I drank or ate came right back. Dry heaving out of the apartment window. Sent a desperate voicemail to a friend saying if I don't respond by 9 a.m. to come check on me. I've been 5 years sober ever since.
I have flown a lot, with a lot of flying over mountains, which seems to be the worst flights. Was flying over the Rockies once and that plane was getting tossed around like a rock polisher. I looked to the flight attendants for a little hope, like maybe they'd be ho-hum. One was white as a sheet and the other one was crying.
Heart disease runs in my family. I'm only 31 and have healthy habits, but it's still something that is in the back of my mind. Earlier this year, during a routine checkup, my doctor heard something in my aorta that caused her a lot of concern. I was wedding planning at the time and had a lot going on, so it took a long while to finally get a Doppler done to check out what she was hearing. The time in between that appointment and actually getting the Doppler was hell. Any little chest discomfort sent me into a panic attack, thinking I could be on the verge of some cardiac event. Finally got my Doppler. Everything clear. EKG is good. Blood pressure is fine. No issues and no heart disease. So, we don't know what she thought she heard, but my heart is good. That doctor ended up retiring in December. Good thing, because her faulty hearing made me think I was dying.
Head-on collision in a car, both going 60 miles per hour. Broke my sternum on the steering wheel. Near-death experience, visions and all that. Woke up and my girlfriend was flown away in a helicopter with bad internal injuries. Didn't know if she survived.
You never knew if your girlfriend survived?
At the time. I found out hours later when I reached through many people to find out she was okay. She was airlifted to Reno. I went to Tahoe. Different hospitals.
My mother was in hospice with terminal cancer. My siblings and I would spend all day there with her and go home to rest at night. One morning, a nurse called and told us we should get there as quickly as possible. My mother had told her she could feel she was dying. We went and sat by her bedside. She was lucid for a few moments here and there, and we were able to exchange some last words of affection, and for that, I am forever grateful. Hours later, she passed. It has shaken me to my core to know that death has a distinct feeling and that you know what it is when it's happening to you.
As a young lad, I worked in a coal mine. I was a roof bolter, and you're never supposed to work under an open, unsecured roof in the mine. I was new and hungover and was reaching out from my machine to adjust something, putting myself, stupidly, under an open roof. I heard a dripping sound and my partner yelled. I pulled back just in time. There was easily a ton of rock and coal where I was just standing. It was a pretty close brush with death. Also less specific, anytime my young kids have been hospitalized or one time almost hit by a car, it's a different type of fear, but it's all-consuming. If your mind dares ask, what if? In those scenarios, it's dark and urgently terrifying. School shooting during my junior year of college. In retrospect, I was safe. The shooter didn't wound or murder anyone in my building. However, the memory remains where I and the others in my class were huddled on the floor, listening to one of the tougher guys start bawling when he learned that a friend was shot, the constant ringing, buzzing and silent answering of phone calls, and of course the heavy thought that kept coming back to me. Is this it? Fortunately, the shooter wounded only 4 or 5 and only murdered one young 19-year-old boy, stealing from him any chance of life. He would have been around 27 or 28 now. I learned and saw a lot that day. I can only imagine what it would be like to have lived through a bigger shooting.
If you're enjoying today's video about stories of our lives, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this and more. Now, let's get back to the video.
Had a really scary accident. During my early 20s,
I spent some time living and studying in South Korea. I was dating my ex-wife at the time who comes from there. However, for cultural reasons, it wasn't possible for us to live together. In fact, she had to keep me a secret from her parents, although we had been in a committed, serious relationship for 3 years by that point. So, because we couldn't live together, I was renting a cute little studio apartment where I was living by myself. Originally, I was going to live on campus, but the housing absolutely sucked and they had totally crazy rules. I wasn't allowed to take any female to my room, and they made absolutely sure that there was literally a guard posted at the dormitory entrance. Not being able to live with my girlfriend and not being able to have her stay overnight was already bad enough, but at least I wanted to have some privacy with her during the day. So, I asked her to help me find an off-campus place to live. By myself, I probably wouldn't have managed to find anything, but as a local, she had access to lots of places I didn't have access to. Anyway, one morning I got up after a bad night with a headache and little sleep. Now, it's important to explain the layout of my studio. It had a very high ceiling with one main floor and a balcony-like second floor. The second floor was only a few square meters, so that's where I had my bedroom. There was a handrail and you could see down into the lower floor. The 2 floors were connected by an extremely steep, wooden staircase without any sort of handrail or rope, etc. I really loved my studio, but that staircase was a flipping safety hazard. So, I got out of bed, feeling groggy and tired. I also suffer from a severe visual disability. I'm legally blind, which made the walk downstairs even more dangerous. I stepped on the stairs but didn't catch the first step quite right. I lost my balance and panicked. My hands were trying to catch a guardrail, but of course, there was none. I felt like I was going to fall down the stairs face forward, but this scared the shit out of me because right at the bottom of the stairs, I had placed a large, man-sized cactus when I first moved in. Genius idea, I know. So, in order to avoid that cactus, I gave myself a push to the right, thereby falling off the stairs sideways where the handrail would normally be. Obviously, all of this happened extremely fast, within a second or 2 at most. I fell down roughly 9 feet or 3 meters headfirst into the kitchenette area. I distinctly remember thinking, oh shit, this is going to hurt really bad. A split second later, I felt a really strong blow to my chin, and another split second later, an even stronger blow to my temple. Then nothing. When I gained consciousness again, I was lying on the downstairs floor. I got up into a kneeling position and noticed there was a puddle of blood on the floor. This really confused me. Whose blood was this? I began to frantically touch myself everywhere and finally noticed my chin was still dripping blood. So, apparently, it was mine. But how did I get injured? And how bad was the injury? Were there other injuries I couldn't see or feel? I began to look around, and that's when things got really scary. I was in some sort of apartment. I couldn't remember having ever seen this place before. Had I been abducted? I could see a door and wondered if it was locked. Did someone lock me in here? I wanted to get up and walk there, but it hurt too much. Also, if I had really been kidnapped. Where had I been before? I tried to remember places and people, but my brain was completely blank. So, I decided to start with more basic things. Where did I grow up? What country was I in? Who were my parents? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Then the scariest question of all. Who am I? What's my name? I couldn't remember it for the life of me. I tried to think of common male names. Peter? No. Paul? Simon? No. It all sounded wrong. But then what the freak was my name? What was I doing here? What was my job? How old was I? It was literally like in the Jason Bourne movie. My brain was like a hard drive that's been completely wiped clean. Not knowing even these basic things gave me a huge amount of panic. I became convinced that someone had kidnapped me, but how could I possibly escape if I didn't even remember my name? What sort of sick things had they been doing with me? Meanwhile, my chin was still bleeding heavily. I managed to get up and look out the window, but that didn't help either. What I saw looked completely unfamiliar. Then, out of nowhere, this one word popped into my mind. Like a bright neon sign on a dark night. It was a name. Yumi. I didn't quite understand who this person was, but I could sense that somehow she was very important to me. It was someone I was very close to. Someone who'd be able to help me. I saw a phone lying on the desk. I thought to myself, "Oh my God, I'm so lucky. The kidnappers must have left this here. I must find Yumi before they come back." Of course, in reality, it was my own phone. I looked through the contacts and there she was. It was my girlfriend and now ex-wife. Fortunately, she picked up. I must have sounded very out of it because she immediately realized something must have happened. She asks me to wait and hung up. I panicked because I thought she wouldn't help me, but then she called back saying an ambulance is on the way. They put me on a stretcher and drove me to the hospital. My girlfriend came as fast as she could. They put me through a whole series of tests. I had a pretty bad concussion, but no serious permanent brain injuries. My chin had to be stitched up and I had to go to the dentist because I had lost 2 teeth. I also had some pretty bad bruises, but no internal injuries. They fixed me up great, and thanks to socialized healthcare, I didn't pay a dime. While scrubbing off the dried blood from my apartment floor a few days later, I suddenly realized I had been insanely lucky. Basically, during my fall I had first crushed onto the kitchen counter with my chin. Hence the wound and lost teeth. Fortunately, my tongue hadn't been between my teeth, otherwise I would have probably bitten it right off. From the kitchen counter, I then fell head first onto the stone floor, hitting it first with my temple. Had I fallen down just a little differently, I would have missed the kitchen counter and instead would have impacted the stone floor with my head directly. Considering I fell down around 9 feet or 3 meters, I most likely would have sustained very serious and permanent brain damage. And no one would have found me because my girlfriend wasn't planning to visit me for another 3 days.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to see more videos about stories of our lives. Click on one of these videos to watch more and see you soon.